I want to talk to you about my friend Charlie Crawford. He's a 10-time NFR qualifier.
Charlie Crawford, time to just shake it out and win. Got it on him fast, set
there
up.
We are.
Here's a day
Nice
money
run.
lead. You betcha 3-8.
That's an absolute perfect run. Timing was perfect from the time the first swing is up. He's got the control. Charlie made it happen by being timed up with his horse with the steer, and being able to not just rope, but to pick that steer's head up without changing the momentum for the heeler at all.
We know his beautiful wife, Jackie, all three of their beautiful children, the founder of the Liberty and Loyalty Foundation, which this year will exceed $1 million raised for military and first responders. I've said it 1,000 times. Charlie, it's time to rope, nod and ride, whip and spur. I want to welcome you to the Charlie Crawford Podcast. Let's ride.
All right, Nelson, we're on. Good to see you again, buddy.
Yeah, it's been a while.
We got to go. So you live here in Austin. Came down a couple days ago, and I got us tickets over there at the Mothership. They're at the Comedy Store. They're in Austin on 6th Street. It's Joe Rogan's Comedy Club. And we went before. I came here last summer. That's kind of my couple days break where I get to come down here and go laugh a little bit and take some time off before I kind of go back to work. But it was so entertaining. So me and Nelson have gone to a lot of different places. We've known each other for a really long time, and we got front row tickets. And I don't know if it was front row tickets. I think there just happened to be 2 seats available right there by the stage, and there we sat.
Accidental, like.
And I would say there was probably, would you say, roughly 10 comedians that were up that night?
Yeah.
And I would say 7 of them spotted you out, and you were literally part of the skit all night long.
I've been picked on all my life.
There was one little creepy dude, and he was a little bit creepy. His comedy was more of like a kind of make you uncomfortable kind of comedy, which has never been my I've never been real comfortable with that type of comedy. But for whatever reason, this guy looks down, looks right at you, and just goes, "Oh, you remind me of my dad." He goes, "I could just put my head on your chest and fall asleep." And what did you tell him?
I don't remember. I got flustered.
I just remember you telling him, "Boy, you got some big balls for a skinny boy." And right about that time, that guy looked to the left, goes, "Okay, I want to pick on this guy over here."
I did not like that guy.
That one was weird. But remember the little short guy?
Oh, he's funny.
He was so funny. But remember he picked on you too? And he come down, I think he looked at you, goes, "You look like a big, strong, burly guy. How tall are you?" And what'd you tell him?
I told him 4'2". I'm in a wheelchair.
And the dude straight up thought you were in a wheelchair. Yep. He was like, "Gosh, dang it, I picked on the wrong guy. I picked on somebody in a wheelchair." And then, yeah, it was we had fun that night. That's a cool place.
I saw the guy after down there. I said, "Really, really good show. You're a funny guy." And he goes, "Man, that was a dirty trick."
What was entertaining was by the time that we had left, there was about, like I said, 7 of these comedians that literally found you. And when we were done with the comedy show, you were literally part of the skit. As we all left the comedy club and went down there and we went to the restroom, and there's me and about 10 other dudes just sitting there in line, ready, waiting to go to the restroom. And they come up and they go, "You're Tom's buddy. You're the guy sitting by Tom." Like you could have sold merch by the end of this comedy club. Like you were literally part of the skit. It was hilarious.
That was so fun.
Yeah, that's a cool place. Yeah, I enjoyed getting to go laugh, and it was pretty cool that Tony Hinchcliffe was there. He finished it. And he was the guy that was murdered on that Netflix Tom Brady roast.
Yeah,
he murdered on that thing. And
yeah, I was glad that guy didn't talk to me. He was brutal. That guy, sharp.
Yeah, yeah. It was a lot of fun. It's kind of getting to see who's kind of on their way up and who's funny and who's established. It was a great mix of comedy. So before we talk about your business, you have a RainSaver Harvesting business and stuff like that. But just to kind of for everyone to kind of get to know you a little bit more, Tom, is, you know, like we talked earlier, we've been friends for a long time, but to get a lot of my listeners where they're a little bit more familiar with some of the stuff that your family and you have kind of been around. You've roped for a really long time, and your dad was the HK Ranch down there in Placido, Texas, and he's had a few good horses that come up through that ranch. One of them was one of the ones that you had rode. What was it? Was it $1?
Yeah, $1.
What was that horse bred like? Do you remember?
I can't remember right now. Kind of a freaky setup down there. A friend had the stud horse, and Dad had a mare, and he just came about, and I never really paid attention to him. He was kind of unruly as a colt down there, and they didn't want to play with him. He was scared of everything and somewhat dangerous. So that's the ones Colton and I got were the ones that they didn't want, and we ended up getting lucky with a couple of them.
And he looked the part. He reminded me a lot of Spiff. Spiff was the head horse that Bobby Hurley had in, I think, the late 1990s. And he was a phenomenal horse. And he reminded me a lot of him. And I remember getting to jump on him a couple of times when you lived right next door and you lived there in Llano. And he was a cool athlete, big, strong, beautiful, beautiful animal with a lot of skills, a lot of foot speed. He was an amazing athlete. And I remember a lot of the guys, when they would watch you rope, the top guys that was trying to get a hold of me, finding out about that horse, trying to get him bought. And he was a freak of an animal, very, very eye catching.
Yeah, he was like a 1,300-pound Michael Jackson. And that's the only reason I won anything. It was easy. I just had to sit up there and practice, and got to place a little bit.
Yeah, because I remember that was one of the strengths that you had when you were going, was the fact that you got there a little bit faster than everybody else and was able to set him up a little faster and finish. He rode from the same place everybody else did, but due to the fact of what that animal was able to do, kind of set you a little bit apart from a lot of the people that you were competing against. And it looked like, I remember you telling me, it was like, this is like stealing on it.
It was
so
cheating.
easy. Yeah.
Like cheating.
It's amazing what happens when you have that animal.
Yeah.
It can be life changing, or in the upper level, it can be career changing.
Yeah, that I would have never been known or even looked at if it hadn't been for that horse.
And then one of the other horses that came from your dad's ranch down there that a lot of people be a lot more familiar with was Switchblade. And that was the heel horse. I believe your dad raised, and Tyler Magnus, I believe, got him first.
Yeah.
And he won the George Strait on that horse. And then Corey Kuntz bought that horse. And then his career just, who knows what all he won on him. The NFRs, the big ropins, and that horse really became really well known there as well. And then he sold him to Al Bach, and then Al was able to ride him at the NFR, and just went down the long line of a long career with some of the top guys riding him.
Yeah, he was another freak. There were so many horses that came out of there, and you luckily had a couple of freaks that could do extraordinary things.
Your dad, he was a cool guy. I remember when my dad came down and your dad came up, and we just put them together.
Yeah.
Golly.
They talked for days.
It was eerie, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were a lot alike.
I was like, these two brothers. It was funny to watch them. They could sit and talk horses all day long.
Yeah, it was like two old guys at a sale barn.
Yeah, exactly
like
right.
They knew each other.
Exactly right. Yeah. It was because my dad, he got to where he was raising horses there for a little bit too. There toward the end, and I just loved it. Loved that. It was fun to watch them too communicate. Like I said, it was a sale barn. That was a good analogy. And so we've known each other for a long time. I remember you taking me down there to your dad's ranch quite a bit, and we went down there hunting. And I remember this one story when we were in the deer blind, and I kept whispering like something stupid probably. He's like, "Did you see some? Shut up! They can hear you." And I remember I couldn't say nothing. And I remember one time, like I moved my chair forward just a little bit, and it kind of barely made a noise. Like, shut up! They can hear you. Like, okay. Well, then I remember one time when we were driving, and it was late at night. I think you were helping me drive up there at the end of the year, and we were going up there maybe to Montana to a roping. And I remember it was my turn to drive, and it was late at night, and every time I'd see a deer, like I had a big giant Freightliner truck, semi.
Oh, yeah, your deer honking story.
And so I would drive, and when I'd see a deer, I'd just lay that big old air horn out there and watch them scatter, right? And every time I would, you'd be in the back of the cab sleeping, and you would almost punch a hole through the top of my ceiling right there because you'd jump up and, what's going on? What's going on? Well, there's a deer. What? There's a deer. Why are you honking? Because I seen a deer. Why are you honking? Well, when I honk the horn, they scatter. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Stop doing that. I'm trying to sleep. So I go for a little while longer. Sun comes up. That's kind of my weakness. You start driving. And how long was it? Was it 20 or 30 minutes? I can't even remember.
Not long.
Not long.
Not long enough.
Boom. Ta-doom, ta-doom, ta-doom. I jump up and said, what happened? He said, I run over a dang deer. And I looked at you and I said, did you honk?
Yeah, that's the closest we've ever been to fighting. I was tired, and I did not need your smart aleck stuff sticking your head out of the sleeper going, did you honk? Tense moment.
Because I remember when you would get on to me so much about one little tiny ounce of noise that I would make in the deer blind, but for whatever reason, an air horn didn't work.
You were like hunting with a 4-year-old kid on speed.
It was very hard to stay contained. I remember when I was a little kid, my dad took me hunting one time, and I was in such a hurry to get through this route to go down to try to hunt because I was hungry. And I remember like when we got done and we were eating elk backstrap, and I was like, man, this is so good. Man alive, I don't know how anybody needs to eat anything else. And the guy said, if you don't learn how to hunt better, you're never going to learn how to eat this.
There's so many good stories. You're an entertaining guy to hang out with.
Yeah, between the two of us, we'd scramble into some stories. So one of the things that I remembered you started in that when we kind of lived by each other was the watering system that you created in the horse trailers. You were one of the first guys that was to hook up into the living quarters water tank and put a toggle switch on it and run a water line from the living quarters down through the mangers up into the horses' mangers up to where when they were traveling, they could actually get water and drink. And I remember we established a lot of those and put a lot of those in. And then now you have a business that you started that you call the RainSaver Harvesting business. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's all these ranches are being cut up and bought. And, a 400 or 500 acre ranch is now 10 or 15 homesteads. And people are drilling wells and keeping green yards like there's an abundance of water. Well, the population's so strong here in central Texas where I live, west of Austin. The groundwater is going away. We're overtaxing it. It's not raining. The lakes are low, and they keep using water like it's never going to go away. Well, it's going away. So it just made sense to start catching water and making it potable and safe to drink. And I ran into a new friend of mine. I've known him 3 or 4 years now. And that's what he's been doing for the last 15 to 18 years. Well, he started manufacturing the tanks to have better control. All of this stuff came out of Australia. And we're all about American, buy American, build American. So he started building these tanks here, and they're a better quality. And with that coming on, he doesn't really have the time for the construction and the installation of the piping and water system, the filters and the UV lights and all the stuff like that. So he invited me to come over and open a sister company, if you will, and start taking that part over. And then I've learned a lot about the web here lately. I've never been a web guy, and it's exploding. Wells are going dry. They're caving in. It's a necessity thing now. It's not a luxury. Although a lot of our customers are luxury and doomsdayers, if you will. They want to be able to run everything on a generator. And if you're sitting on 30,000 gallons of water, a family can live for 6 months on 30,000 gallons of water if you don't water a yard. You can do a garden or a planter. But having your own water sitting there is a wonderful thing. And it's high quality. There's no mineral in it. It's kind of like medical grade drinking water. So it's better, and you can sit there and look at it and you know what you have.
A couple of years ago, Troy Applegate and I, we had a meeting with Kyle Bass. And Kyle Bass, I forgot exactly, very, very successful businessman. And I can't remember exactly what kind of landed him on the map with his success. But I remember as we were having lunch with him and introducing him to the military event, and we were talking about and getting some ideas on some things. And one of the things that he does a lot of that he was really talking about was going around Texas and talking to ranchers and farmers and the importance of understanding what's going on with the water table and understanding what the what he thought Texas' greatest concern was the fact that there's only so much water under our feet. And with all these people moving in, what used to be a 100-acre ranch, 400-acre ranch, or 1,000-acre ranch is now getting bought up, getting cut into 5, 10 acres, 20-acre ranches, or, places, whatever you want to call them, and they all have a straw on the ground, every single one of them. And so the depleting water under our feet is going to be a very growing concern with the amount of people coming to Texas for whatever reasons, whether they're more aligned in politics or the opportunity or, whatever. One of the reasons why Texas is great is because it's Texas, and that attracts a lot of people. And so when you get a lot of these people coming here that don't understand the water shortage, they don't understand you don't need to be watering your yard. I live in Stephenville, and there's a little town called Huckabee, which is kind of the community that I live in. And the ladies at the store were talking one day, and we were talking about some of the people that are moving in that don't have any idea about the water shortage that we deal with here in Texas. And the last 2 years, not this year, but the last 2 years before this, we've had a major drought down here in Texas. And last summer, one of the people that moved in right by the lady that owns the store, he had a tank on his place. And for a lot of people that don't understand what a tank is, I think you've maybe helped explain it to me. Like, I think in Oregon, we would call it a pond, but a pond is more naturally made. Right. A tank is man-made. It's a tank to catch the water to create a pond, to where it's a stock tank. You basically water in your cattle. Right. It captures the water from the runoff to where you can water your cattle. So that's why they call them tanks down here. But his tank went dry. And so he put his garden hose out and just turned the water faucet on to try to fill his tank back up. And the amount of people that are like, whoa, 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 within the neighboring community. It's like,
it's like a root system.
You can't do that.
You're all attached.
You're all attached.
The same.
Yeah. And so people that just don't understand when they move down here that is, people either grew up on city water, or like say when you grow up from Oregon, there's just, water's plentiful. It's probably an endless supply in a way. And it's not like that down here.
Yeah. We need to be stewards of what's underground. And the normal man can't go out there and drill another $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 well. Rainwater will not go away if it rains. It's just there, and you're keeping erosion or being able to control erosion issues. I just don't see a downside to it.
So how does it work? So tell me, when you go bid a job and you go to explain things, to how do you catch the water? Where does it go? What is, when you talked about the tanks, what do those look like? How do you make it to where it's not an eyesore in the environment of where you put it?
Well, there's two ways of going about a system. If you have a composite roof or shingles, there's carcinogens in shingles. So then we would recommend someone to catch that and put it in a storage tank anywhere from 1,500 gallon to 65,000 gallons. You can get virtually any size tank you want.
What's the smallest and what's the biggest?
1,500 is the smallest we make, and that's metal corrugated galvanized. We don't do any of the poly DIY Home Depot type systems. And then goes up to 65,000 gallons, and they sit on a gravel pad. There's no superstructure or anything to hold all this stuff up. They have a food grade liner in them, and you can virtually pick any gallonage that you want. And, there's a little formula that you use how many people are going to be there, animals, what are you going to sustain off this water, and that dictates what size tank we would recommend.
What size, and then also maybe how many?
Yeah, you can go multiple tanks, but being able to go from 1,500 to 65,000, one tank is normally sufficient, unless you get into commercial applications, where they require a lot of water. But, back to the roof thing, if you have shingles, it's too hard. You'd have to reverse osmosis that water in order to make it safe to drink because of the carcinogens. But a clay tile or metal roof can easily be turned into potable or potable water, however you want to say it. Run it through a couple of filters, put it through UV light, and you have perfectly clean, great water. It's not hard. It's a little acidic, high pH. I mean, you're paying $4 a bottle in the store for high pH water, and you're getting it out of your own spigot. So there's no more chalky stuff on your glass in your showers. It goes away. It's the best water that's out there.
I had a clinic out there in Crest, Texas, and there was a kind of a farming community, and I was telling them about your rainwater catching business, and we just kind of end up getting on the topic of talking about that. And he said, "Oh yeah," he said, "out there at the ranch, we have that on our barns and stuff where we catch that water and we use that water around to run the ranch in that spot because of the lack of, I think maybe the groundwater underneath where they're at." And he says, "Man, I'm telling you the difference of when I drink my tea over there as to when I come back home on a well." He's like, "The tea's not even the same." He's like, "The tea is so much better over there at the ranch where we catch that water." He said, "Just the way it tastes." And he said, "It's just so much, I think he said it was almost a little sweeter, but he said it was so much more pure water."
It is. It's not hard. It's a soft water. You use less soap, tastes better. It falls out of the sky, and sure, there's some contaminants from the sky, but you run it through your little sediment charcoal filter and then zap it with a UV light, and you can't beat it.
So when you talk about the UV light and some of the things in the filters, how hard is this to maintain?
It's really nothing. There's a couple of screw-on filters that you replace once every 6 months, and they're about $20, $25 a piece. And then a UV light lasts 1 year, and there's a digital countdown thing to remind you how many days you have left on your bulb, and squeeze a couple of tabs, pull the bulb out, plug another one in, put it back in there. There's no wrenches or tools needed. We encourage people to maintain their own system. You can buy all the filters and all the UV lights on the internet. We only use upper grade equipment, if you will, like Viqua equipment that's readily available anywhere in the United States. We don't want to trap anybody into using our special little thing or special parts. We want you not to need us when we're done. But we do offer a service to come over and put you on a schedule and do it, but it's expensive to get someone to drive 2 hours out there to change a couple of filters in a bulb. So we make videos when we finish a system, and they'll call us, "I lost my video." Well, here, we'll send it to you again. And then, okay, we can do this. I literally have 80-year-old women maintaining their own system.
So it sounds pretty easy to maintain.
Yeah.
So what is the cost to install one of these, and what is kind of the cost to also maintain it after it's been installed?
A 3,000-foot house, 2,000-foot house, normal install or average install would be $30,000. Just wild ballpark. That same system in Dolomite Rock could be $42,000, but the range I would give somebody is upper 20s to 50. And there's so many factors involved in it. How big a system you want? How big is your house? What is the terrain like to get all this done? How far do you want the tank away? You can literally put 1/2 a mile away from your house. And where do you want it piped? How much water do you require? Big pumps, little pumps. A lot of doomsdayers are buying these things as a luxury item, and then they find out that, man, the water's a lot better than well water. So then we switch programs, and they'll store well water for emergencies and use the rainwater full time. And we've even people that don't have $30,000, $50,000. There's a company out there that we third party that finances them, and they're reasonable. And there's no signing away your property or anything. They give you a signature loan on these water systems. And now counties and water districts are starting to give rebates. I've seen some of them get it as much as $10,000 back for putting in a rainwater system in these areas that they're struggling to supply water to the public. And it may be as little as $10 or nothing.
I've been wondering if there was government programs to incentivize people to do things like this because of to try to save the amount of water underneath of our feet.
The local counties, like Burnett County, over here where we are in Central Texas, it's help for them. It saves the erosion. You get to dictate when you get full of water where the runoff goes. And I'm kind of losing track on here because we're jumping around a little bit on how all this stuff comes together. We prioritize people that are out of water. Wells are failing over here. Water tables are dropping. They're caving in. They're doing a lot of weird things that is not normal in the last 10 years. So these are out of water. We call everybody that's on schedule and move them down and go get the people water again. And yeah, it may not rain, but they can truck in water and put it in here until it does rain. And the maintenance cost, it's $5,000-6,000 to pull a pump out of a hole in the ground and work on a burnt wire or a bad pump. That's all gone. You just back up to the tank and pull the pump out. We use the same submersible equipment that's in a hole in the ground and just lay it horizontally in the bottom of the tank. So, for a couple $100 in the parts, you're running again. And by not having them down in the hole, dealing with all the particulates and mess that's down in there and working to get it up to 200, 300, 400, 500 feet to the surface, the pumps virtually last forever. I've had a few sensor failures out of 100 system. It's probably a less than 3%. Go back and work on something. The environment for the equipment is so much easier that they just don't fail.
So when a guy talks about being able to put in a well here in this area, what does a well cost compared to what your costs are? It seemed like it was pretty close.
Well, it used to be you could go put in a well for $4,000 or $5,000 and have it, pumped and ready to make water or making water. And now it's in the 20s. 25 is a pretty common number.
Some places I've even heard 30 and maybe even up.
Oh, out here where they're going, some of these places are, southwest of here are dictating that you go down to the Trinity and that's 600-700 feet, 700-ish and some 700-ish feet.
Now, what do you mean by the Trinity?
It's an aquifer. It's one of the deep aquifers or the deep aquifer.
And it's the one way down there.
Yeah. And it's good water, but it doesn't replenish. And it's down, I don't know how many feet, but it's down and people are concerned. But counties, water districts are dictating what water you get to. And some of those wells are, they start at 50 for a hole and go up. I've heard them over $200,000 to get water to a place. That's extreme, but they're no longer the normal $10,000-$15,000 thing. The norm is 25 and the average is 50-ish. And it gets crazy after that if you have to go deeper, run into, trouble or a hard spot to get water. And our systems pretty much cap out in the 50s if you want to get wild and get a lot of water.
Your system, I've heard, to where you have a tank where some people might say, well, I don't really want a tank or I don't really want an eyesore. How far away can you get that tank away from your house to where if you don't want to see it, how far away can you get it? But then I've also seen too where you put some tanks in and kept them close to the house because you can also get fairly decorative with it. Yeah. I've seen some of them look pretty damn cool.
Yeah, there's 3 different types of roofs that we have. One of them, the most economical, is a dome roof. And it's corrugated metal just like the sides. And we put the sides through a roller per the diameter required of the tank. And then we take the same sheets and put them on trusses across the tank. Low visibility, 7'4" eave, 7'6" top of the roof. And then if you want to get pretty, we have these grain silo type standing seam roofs, 10 degrees, 30 degree. There's 3 different types of roofs. So if somebody wants to put it into their design or wants to see something like that, they can pick 1 of 3 different roofs, put them where they want them. Some people hide them. Some people want them out there. Some people paint them. Some people wrap them in cedar. There's just a multitude of things that we offer.
Some of the rock that I've seen put around them looks really cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's some guys that stone them, and we just extend the roof out further to cover the top of the stone, and you can kind of hide them or include them in your decorative.
And then how far away did you say they can go to where if you're trying to hide one?
Man,
and a lot of that depends. Now, a lot does that depend on too. Also, where does it flow? If it flows downhill or if it goes uphill, does that have to dictate a little bit?
Water doesn't go uphill or doesn't want to. We have to pump it in that situation, and that's not ideal to put it in a sump and pump it into the tank. We always want to have natural gravity flow when possible, and get it at least enough elevation change to where the filling of the tank is non-mechanical. It goes from the gutters into pipe in the ground and goes through some screens and catch things for trash and, leaves, etc. So the lower it is, the better, in my opinion. And the distance, all you have to do is upsize your pipe
Hmm.
a little bit to handle the friction loss over distance to get there and make it an efficient system. I don't want to say unlimited, but it can go
Go pretty good ways.
long way away as long as you have the elevation change.
So once you get a really good rainstorm, and depending on how big your house is and how much you catch, obviously if you have a big barn, it catches more. If you have an indoor arena, holy smokes, man, you can catch. What is kind of your ratio? Remember, you kind of had a ratio on how much square foot to where how much rain you catch.
Yeah, it's 0.625 factor. So the easiest way to think about it is if you have a 2,000-foot house, it's going to generate 1,200 gallons per inch of rain. So if you live in a place that makes 30 inches of rain, like most of central Texas is, from north to south in Texas, there's a pretty wide band in there that's in a 25, 28, 32 range. So just call it 30 inches. And you have 2,000 feet. Well, 30 times 1,200 gallons is 3,600 gallons, 36,000 gallons, I believe, that you're going to generate a year. Now, that's a lot of water on 2,000 square feet. And if you store it all, a family of two only uses 2,500 gallons a month. So you have a year's worth of water. Once that tank gets full, you don't need a well. If you're somewhat responsible with your water, you can handle some planters or a little garden as long as you hand water, but don't make the assumption that or mistake of putting it on a timed yard automated watering system and think you're going to keep a yard green off this. It's not capable of doing.
Well, because we've even talked about putting it over there at my place and the advantage of having it in my place to where, I've got I forget how big my barn is, but I think it was like 60 by 100. Or it's maybe 90 by 90 by 100. And so just the amount of rainfall we could catch just with that is amazing because, we have between 20 to 30 head of cattle between calves and steers. We have between 20 to, let's just guess around 20 to Jackie retires, we'll probably have 180 horses. But for right now, we just have 20. And, you think about just with that, if my well, because we talked about it almost, if we just had the well water, just running it for our cattle and then being able to catch the water from our barn just to be able to use for our house and things like that, to where just the relief it would almost give just from my well.
Yeah, you're taxing a well. I can't believe you're getting by as long as you have on one well over there, and you've had some issues with it. The maintenance alone, you've probably already paid for a rain catchment system. And to have duplicity or a backup system, if you will, with all those animals around there and your well goes bad, don't panic. Go turn a couple of valves. We're good till the well guy gets here. Or if we have to drill another one, we're good. Even in the worst case scenario, say you didn't have any water and it was brand new, you can truck water in and fill that tank up and put it everywhere your well's putting water. It's a safe.
Because when we were going through those rolling blackouts, that was, a couple years ago during those ice storms.
Yeah.
And that started getting pretty real.
Yeah.
We were fine. I think we were off for an hour and then 45 minutes later, our power came back on. So it was just enough to at least keep the well, kind of where the water stayed full. But man, there were some guys that were going weeks, maybe even months without electricity. Well, that's no water.
Yeah, our systems run on the same power requirements for, like, if you're going to full-time live on this and supply animals and everything, it's the same equipment that's down in your well, and we have the same power requirements. But with the tank and the supply being up top, you can put in a 110 pump that will do the job with a little generator. Yeah, it's you can have water. Or some people, when they don't use them full time, they put in these little all-in-one pumps that we use that plug into a 110 socket in the wall because they are doomsdayers. And they want to be able to power it with a little bitty generator. It pulls 6 or 8 amps. I mean, you can run it on one of your little Honda generators and have water wherever you want.
That way, at least it gets you through those hard times to where when things go south, because it's been obviously more occurring. It seems like here lately, I think, and a lot of it maybe due to the amount of people coming here, or maybe the grid system ain't caught up. You guys can get political on exactly where you think it's going, but it's been one of those things too, where it's crossed our minds because between either the power outage shortage that we've had a couple times here in Texas, and then also I think it was this winter when we got back home and all of a sudden the well quit, And when you have this many animals, that's a situation when those things happen. So say like where my place has a lot of rain catch. I got a big barn, a lot of rain catch. What happens when we have one of those big storms? It replenishes the tank and now it's full. Where does that water go once that tank is full?
There's an overflow at the top. We design it to have brimful of water, and then it goes out a 6-inch pipe that has a flapper on it so animals can't get up in there. But the beauty of that is especially at your place, the erosion over there is a big problem of going right down the middle where you feed all your horses in the back. You get to dictate where the water goes. All that, your place generates 6,000-7,000 gallons of water every inch of rain, and it runs right down the middle of that thing. You're constantly working on it. Well, put your tank over here and then direct that water the overflow water where you want it to go.
And direct it toward like our stock tank.
Yeah. I mean, that's what a lot of people do. They design these things with that in mind. My overflow from here goes there. Erosion goes away, and you have a tank that you can supplement without pulling water out of the ground.
So can you irrigate out of this? Would this give you, so people that want to have that green lawn, does that kind of help them have that? I know a guy wants to be real careful on some of that, or if you're like say some doomsdayers, they're gonna want a little garden for sure.
A little garden, fine. If you're hand watered, fine. If you're trying to keep your yard 1 acre yard, not so much. Now you, with all the roof that you have, all you'd have to do is buy a bunch of tanks and store enough water. A typical cycle on an irrigation system at a house is about 2,000 gallons. So if you're doing that twice a week, well, 4 times 4, that's 16,000 gallons a month. Well, we want you to have a minimum of 4 months storage.
Mm.
So 4 times 16 is 64. You got to have a 65,000 gallon tank to maybe keep your yard completely green like you are now. And it's coming out of the sky. I mean, you're welcome to do that. And, when you get up in those big tanks, you're up in the $50,000 range. To do all that, if you want to do it, that's fine. I don't think that's the way we need to go. Catch the rain that you need.
And then you think of too is the guys that got the indoor barns. Oh my goodness!
Oh, good Lord,
man! You could water would be plentiful.
Oh yeah,
that's a lot of water to catch.
Yeah, it's the quality of the water and the stewardship on the groundwater. It's running off uncontrolled. It's eroding. Catch it, purify it, feed your animals with it, grow your gardens with it.
So when this water comes in off the tin, and say like you have all the dirt that collects throughout the, especially being outside arenas, things like that. There's gonna be a lot of dirt on top of your barn, especially like for us, we're all tin. Everything we have tin. Right. So when that water comes in, is tin okay for that water when it comes in? You said there's some that are like when you said the clay tiles are maybe not as good, but like tin's ideal, right?
Clay tiles and tin are perfect. There's no carcinogens.
But what about some of the dirt that comes in there in the leaves?
Sure, inevitably there's going to be birds that die on your roof, run into it, whatever, animals, mice, rat, whatever. They go in the gutter system, and we have these screens that are called leaf catchers, and the water hits a screen and then lets all that stuff fall on the ground. Or you can put screens on the gutters, on top where you don't see them, and then the pipes go up, and you don't see these leaf catchers, or leaf eaters is what they're sold as. So it's screened there, either by a gutter screen or these leaf eaters. Then it goes to the tank, and when the pipe goes into the tank in the top, there's another catch basket in there about 1 foot deep and 2 feet around. For anything that happens to get by that system, it's caught in this basket before it goes into the water. And all these tanks are sealed. Larvae from mosquitoes is big. It's harmless once it goes through all the filters and the UV light, but who wants to see it? So these tanks are sealed. It's dark. Algae can't grow in them. Bugs can't get in them. And it's as clean as we can make it before it goes through the filters. And once it goes through a 10 micron filter, and then a 5 or 10 micron charcoal filter, or carbon filter, some people call them, and then a UV light, it doesn't matter. It's clean and it's safe.
Now, is this legal to do in every state?
No, and I don't know all the rules on that. And the last time we have small place in Colorado. We wanted to do it, so we checked into that instead of digging a well. And they have some silly requirements up there, 30 acres. You have to attempt a well. And there's one more state, I believe, that regulates it. They don't want you to have a well unless you go, or I'm sorry, they don't want you to have a containment or a catchment system unless you go through these certain steps. And but Texas encourages it. They want you to catch water around here. They're reasonable people.
That does seem like it has a lot to do with that. If it's with, if it makes sense and it's reasonable, and if your government allows any kind of common sense, it seems like. But I think I heard there in Colorado where they said, I think a lot of states depend on Colorado for water. So they discourage catching any water because of how many other states rely on that water that comes out of the sky and drains and where it goes. But in Texas, we don't have mountains. And I think that's one of the biggest things a lot of people don't understand, especially like me coming from Oregon. We had mountains. I mean, just water's just running all over that state. And so it's just not we don't grow up with that as an issue, as to where here, the only time we get it is when it comes out of the sky.
Yeah. I don't want to get into all the politics of why people do what on this. We put them in where they're legal, needed, and even supplemented by the local government agencies. Mm-hmm. And another thing, insurance. If you're out in the woods and some people are 2 miles away from a fire station, and not a volunteer fire station, a full staff fire station, after 2 to 5 miles away from there, your homeowner's insurance goes through the roof because you don't have water or a fire station close enough. So we put a fire department connection specified by them on these tanks. And some places are getting huge discounts on their insurance. And then because now they have X amount of gallons dictated by the area, and the fire truck can go up there and get all the water they need to put the fire out in your house. So they're actually paying for systems in 5 to 7 years just because of the insurance reductions. And another thing that's happening just this year, builders risk insurance, that builders buy insurance so if something happens during the process. Well, it used to be about 1%. Well, now it's 3.x%. It's tripled, more than tripled. So a customer of mine said his builder's risk went from $10,000 that he had plugged in the number when he bid the job to $36,000 when it actually happened because of fire. That's what they're concerned about. So we put a tank in over there, and it went back almost to the $10,000 and made it where it wasn't an issue. So, construction guys are putting water tanks in now just for fire suppression, and the savings on the builder's risk insurance is paying for the tank. So now the homeowner, all he has to do is hook up to it. So, it's cutting the cost, 40%.
That's been something that I've read about in California, where the insurance is getting so high in California that a lot of big insurance companies are dropping a lot of the homes in California because of all the wildfires and things like that. It would be amazing to see what you'd think like California would really jump on that. Now, I don't know if they have, and I don't even know if it's legal to do, but I have been hearing what you're talking about the insurance getting so high because of all the wildfires that go on there, that you would think that would be huge out west. I mean, you also talk too about some of the government. They have certain incentives. Do you know any of the details here in Texas about any of the government? Do they have any of those incentives?
They're
or
not
where they're at
normalized. It's different everywhere you go.
It's different
I've
everywhere.
Had people contact their local governmental agency, and they get $10,000 off a $30,000 system. Up to half is what they'll give you, and then you go to another one, and it's $100. It's so diverse.
Fluctuates.
You have no idea unless you get the county that you're in and go ask and see what's happening. But the insurance thing is constant. And there's some verbiage and things that we give people on the builder's risk thing. You need to use this little form and say this, this, and this, and the insurance company has acquiesced every time thus far.
So who buys these systems? What are some of the people that buy these?
Everybody, gardeners to big ranchers. I'm catching water off barns, and I'm catching water off tiny houses. And the most important part is everybody's drafting around here out of a recreational lake that's huge financial impact. They're drafting so much water out of here that it's probably never going to stay at full again for the period of time that it needs to support all of the income. off the lake, the weekenders and the blah, 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 that restaurants, everything on the lake, they have to start catching water around here. So there's neighborhoods in the area of Blanco County and close to us that if you buy in this subdivision, you have to put in 30,000 gallon tank or 10,000, or, they dictate. If you're going to build here, you must have a rain catchment system. And some of these subdivisions don't even have a well. You're not allowed to drill a well. You can subsist or live on rainwater alone. Wells are no longer needed.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty cool once you think of it.
It's cool to see, everything evolves, and so how things were started and how things, were back a long time ago. Everything's got to consistently evolve, and the same system that we've been using, especially here in Texas, is just not sustainable. It doesn't seem like for longevity of keeping the water underneath of our feet. So it's pretty cool to see what innovations have starting to accommodate people to where that they continue to keep having water. Last question is, so I know you have warranties and things like that along with this system, but how long are the warranties?
The tank and liner that's in the tank is 20 years. Manufacturer warranty, no questions asked. If you pour chlorine or some caustic in there and you cause, you cause damage, that's going to be an issue. But there's no anode stations. You don't have to do any crazy maintenance, tricky things that may void your warranty. There is none of that with our tank systems. Aqualine is who manufactures the tank on the same property that we're on. The liner is a liner out of Australia, and we're buying enough of them now where they're opening a plant right down the road from where we are. And it used to be kind of troublesome to get a container in 90 to 120 days from the order to receive time. So they're starting to make them right down the street from us now. And by far the best liner in the world. Everything's mil spec. These guys are the number one people in the world. We've tried others and had trouble. And I kind of lost where you were on your question there.
The warranty and things like that.
The manufacturer's warranty. There's so many variations of what we can do. You can have an LED computerized controller that fancy, and if something goes wrong, you call in a code. We know what's wrong with it. Any system we put in, I put them in Cotulla, I put them in a Panhandle. Well, we can't drive up there and service them, so everything that we do is serviceable by the local guy. Nothing we buy is specialized. So, of course, we will. I mean, I've driven up there and serviced them, but we want them to, when we're gone, anybody can work on them, keep them going, and keep them simple.
So starting these businesses where you're doing now, it's kind of cut into some of your hobbies, hasn't it?
Oh, man.
Because you're one of the type of guys that it's amazing when you get into it just long enough to where you figure it out and then you move on. Kind of like with your roping. Man, got it figured out, had a really good horse, kicked their butt. Okay, we're done. Now we're gonna go learn how to be a sniper. Then we're gonna go be a pilot.
Let's finish up the warranty thing. The tanks and liners are 20 years, and the equipment varies on what you buy, 1 to 5 years. It's all factory warranties. We have nothing to do with it. So back to the mastering stuff. I've never mastered golf. I quit because I couldn't do it. And I quit roping because I lost the horse that made me able to compete with everybody else. I don't have the talent to do it off a lesser horse. So rather than shame myself, I'm sitting here flying an airplane now.
And then you started shooting there for a while.
Yeah, I got into that. That was fun.
So talk about that, because it was really cool so I had this military clinic there at my house for a long time until it kind of grew into now where it's at NRS, and now there's a big roping affiliated with it. But a lot of the guys, they would come over and they would bring in their ARs and some of their Glocks with the military and the first responders and stuff, and then some of their shotguns. And, we go out there in the back and we shoot, and one of them brought tracer rounds, and I had to understand the fact that these guys hey, make sure that you don't miss the tank when we're shooting these tracer rounds, because they started putting beer bottles on top of my tank and then shooting off into the field right behind it. There was a dried up coastal field. Apparently tracer rounds they're hot. And so we had to go put out fires. I'm like, how is it that I have to be responsible when you guys are around here? But it was cool. The guns that they brought, it really, I wasn't a real gun guy. And when they would bring them around, it was just I really love the Glocks. And just the smoothness of how they shoot and become more interested in guns. And then when you showed up and brought your rifle, because you started competing in the shooting. So talk about that.
Yeah, there's a guy that roped good, and he decided he was going to make a club of shooting competitive. You go up, pay an entry fee, and you win money. And that was really appealing to me. So he helped me get started and taught me a lot. And I went out and had a fancy gun built, and it ended up being like that one truck you have in your life that runs better than all the others. It's super accurate. And again, I was competitive because I had a really good horse in the roping. I had a really good gun in the shooting. And when it got kind of boring to me after a while when you couldn't go compete for money, I didn't want to just go make noise and make steel bend. But it is cool when you can sit on something 1,300 yards away and keep 10 bullets in a circle, 8 inches around.
Well, so who when you got this gun, who did you start shooting with? And then also when you were competing and going to some of these competitions, first of all, what all did you win? And then second of all, what is kind of the recipe to be able, because there's some math also involved.
Tons.
With the further away you are. And then also what are some of the ranges that how far distance that you shot at?
Oh, the furthest that I shot was 1,300 yards, just because I didn't want to load hot loads to go further and erode my barrel quickly. I mean, there's some guys out there that shooting fire-breathing cannons. I went for accuracy, recoil management, and you had to lay down there and shoot 10 rounds in 3 minutes. And it sounds like, man, that's easy. 3 minutes goes fast when you're trying to hit something 1,000 yards away.
Because what also is the math that you have to take in consideration?
Oh, there's windage, elevation, drop, weight, humidity, Coriolis effect. I mean, it's complicated, if you really get into it. But in the end, when somebody figures it out, point over there that far, and it'll get back to there. So you share the information, and it was so fun. The meticulous.
Because that's how your brain works. You're really good with numbers and enjoying the almost the math of it and the puzzle to put together.
Yeah, it's fun, and I like micron details and making things perfect.
Now, who all did you go shoot with when you started training for these events?
I was trying to think. It was a whole group of guys that I never really hung out with, minus the guy that got me started in it. And it was a whole new group of gun nuts, if you will. They'd have 10-year-old kids over there shooting better than we did. It was a family-oriented, build things, do things well, pay attention to the details. And I'm all about doing things with kids. And I made thousands of bullets to go take people shooting, especially kids and people that didn't have the opportunity to go shoot long range. And that was the fun of it for me, above the competitive. When the money jackpot went away on the thing, I was more into taking kids and people that, oh, you can't shoot 7/8 of a mile and hit something. Well, yeah, we do it all the time, and you can too. So we take them down there and let them shoot, 1,000, 1,300 yards, and they'd hit what they were looking at. Pretty confident, a lot of confidence building, and I can do that stuff. I like watching people do that stuff.
It was fun because when the military guys would show up, and they would show up a day early before the clinic, and so we'd go shoot, because that was one of the things they were awesome. I mean, these guys are so cool, like Hotness and some of the guys that they would show up and come early, and we'd shoot, and they'd help my family shoot. They taught Cadence how to shoot, and they would help us with a lot of gun safety and things like that. Obviously, minus the tracer rounds at the neighbor's coastal field, but besides that, it was pretty cool. But the amount of ARs that would lock up, and if Hotness might have forgot to clean them and this and that, and after a while, I kept telling them, I'm like, hey, this clinic is going on here pretty good, and these jackpots are getting pretty good. Like I'm evolving here. Like maybe you guys need to step up some of your guns. Like we're shooting these same guns, same shotguns, same Glocks, same ARs. Like how about I can widen my entrance. How about we start getting a tank in here? Let's start firing some tanks off. Does anybody have a plane? Can we shoot something from a plane? Like, I'd really like to maybe make a 5-year plan out of this. Can we get some grenade launchers? Like step up our game here a little bit. And then, of course, they were like, well, that's all we got. Yeah. So then you show up and you bring this freaking sniper gun that's just, I don't know how much it cost. And it was and then you brought those over for those guys to come shoot. And the guys were like, well, man, this makes us feel really good. we brought these guns over here for you to shoot, and your buddy right here brings this cannon over here. This is the coolest thing we've ever seen. It was a sweet gun.
That was fun watching us guys shoot that thing.
Oh, they were, absolutely.
Those things that they shot were loud and wild, and this thing's like a precision watch, and they never fooled with it. They really liked it. And
it was fun to watch.
They were immediately good at it. I mean, most people take a while to pick up on the nuances. In 2-3 shots, they listened to everything. They already knew everything, and they were shooting where they could shoot far on their own.
And it was fun, too, where you and your dad invited us down there to his ranch, and I got to take a lot of those guys down there, and we went down there and went hunting for a few days. And
that was so much fun.
Yeah, and then we went on your guys' range where we got to go shoot the guns, and that was a lot of fun. And it was fun watching them.
Yeah. Yeah, like they do all the peep sight military stuff, and I've never been in the military. All of our stuff, I mean, I can see gnats at 2,000 yards, with the optics we have. They go out there with these holes punched in a thing with a painted thing on the end of the gun. They're shooting 200 yards and pretty accurately. I mean, it's crazy how good they can do.
And it was fun for me because then they would start showing me like tactical ways to shoot your guns to where I was actually able to start using the pistol at a walk.
Yeah.
And then, back to the holster, and then being able to move around with the AR as I was able to actually shoot the target and move. I wasn't good enough to where we started like doing somersaults and hiding behind things because I don't think that was quite there yet. But you could tell where like there were so many, like to be able to get in their world where it was tactical and like, I really would think it'd be so much fun to go to a shoot house, where you start learning how to hide behind things and move and shoot. And it was, you could tell where that part of it, man, a guy could have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. My oldest son, Caleb, he's out there in Midland, and he's hooked up with some of these ex-military guys or retired. And that's what they do. They go through these courses and they go around corners and these guys did this stuff at a high level for the military, and they've been teaching him stuff, and there's so much to it. He really likes it. He's kind of a detail nut too. And he's physically able to do all these things, and man, he's having a great time.
Yeah, that is fun. And what's cool about your business too is where Colton's starting to work under you and manage a lot of the things too that you don't have time for. And it's I think every dad's dream to be able to build something and then their son be able to kind of come up and help take it over. And it's been cool to watch too. I was watching a job where he was bidding on it, and it's cool to be able to see where you guys are able to work together with it.
Yeah, the young guys are so much smarter with all the technical stuff. I mean, he gets on a computer Google map and tells me exactly how many square feet are here. It makes it so much easier. And
they bring the technology that they grew up now knowing because you got to have a little bit of that youth in there. You've got to know what's going on with the websites. You got to know what's going on with the social media. You got to know what the new marketing techniques are with the search engines to be able to put you in front of more people. And it's not like running an ad back in our day.
Yeah, both you and I have experienced that. You just don't hand a bunch of money to somebody and say, build me a website. It doesn't work out.
You got to be real careful of the text.
I was going through the same thing, and Colton came and knew nothing about it. And 2 months later, phone is ringing off the wall. He figured it out. And I would still be there trying to turn the computer on.
Where you and I are on the tech side of it is what I try to warn everyone at my clinics that is just kind of getting started. You got to watch out for the horse traders.
Yeah.
You got to watch out for those guys that are just there to try to knock a home run and leave.
Right.
You end up getting bucked off, reared over backwards, get hurt.
Right.
If you don't know what you're looking for, and I get it because I understand, if you don't know what you don't know, and then on the technical side, that same landmine is in that business as well.
And prevalent, I think. People that I've talked to, I mean, I spent a lot of money over a year and a half and saw nothing. Colton comes back from his engineering job and sat down, and 2 months later, I can't keep up. And so there's something to it. There are traders in every business.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Well, man, I appreciate one of the other things too. I appreciate so much is what you help do, because you're one of those guys that really helps a lot, but you always do it in the shadows. What you do for my military and first responder guys when you fly up there and show up is you go amongst your little group out here in Austin and kind of talk to some guys about getting some money donated. And when you show up, you find the guys that are struggling. You have feelers out there to where, somebody's truck broke down on the way to the event. You're always in there to where who's struggling, who might have lost their job or who had heck with their horse. And who couldn't pay their fees. And you do it's pretty cool when you show up to my event and you find the guys with enough feelers of who needs help. Because a lot of these guys, they'll come anyway, because it's so important for a lot of these guys that come to this event because they need it. And they need that camaraderie. They, a lot of these guys, some of them, I'm not going to name any names, but there's some of these guys that have talked to me too about this has kind of helped keep them alive in one perspective of, because it gives them something to look forward to where they're able to get comfortable again amongst their people. Well, some of these guys may not have the financial means to get there. And some of them might have blew an axle. Some of them might have blew a train. I mean, there's a lot of things that have happened to where these guys do what they can to get to this event. And you do such a great job of going in the shadows of finding out who those guys are that struggled to where you can help them out. So,
well, that's the original group, Travis and Hotness and all those guys kind of took me in because of the relationship you had with them. And I like those guys. We talk all throughout the year. And they know. I mean, those guys are military veterans, and they talk to military veterans where not so much to civilians. They would never tell me. It's that these guys go search and find the people that are in a bind. And then it just shows up, things get taken care of. And, we'd like to do more, but the pride guys sleeping with families in their truck in the parking lot because they're not going to ask for help. But if one of their buddies come up there, they'll take it. So it's kind of a stay in the shadow type job, and I like it. It makes me happy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a good group of guys, and it's great to have those guys because I can't manage all of it. And so it's fun when my buddies come in and just find the holes. They find where the niche is. They find what needs to be done. And you've always been that. And it's been such a blessing to these guys to, I remember one of them came and didn't have the money to enter the jackpot.
Right.
And they worked the booth. They just went in there and just filled in, and I was helping selling merch. Before long, you see them helping running up cattle. And you're like, well, why aren't you entered? And they wouldn't say nothing.
Right.
And then sure enough, we find out that, they barely had enough money to get to the event. And especially right now, inflation is just killing so much of the middle class and a lot of these guys, to where insurance has gone up. The price of groceries has gone up. Diesel has gone up. You go down the line of the things that gone up. Well, their salaries have stayed the same. And so the amount of money that they have at the end of the month has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. And so the help that is needed probably this year may be as much as anybody has needed it, more than we've done that. It's probably more going to be this year than any of the time prior that we've had this event because of what inflation is just saddling these guys in the middle class, and it's freaking hard to watch.
I see a huge need this year for the undercover shadow help, and I don't even know who gets some of this money. I don't need to know. It's the guys that can enter, the guys that spent their last dime getting there, and this. I don't know if you pitch or if you can edit this out if you want to, but any of you people that out there that have money, donate to this thing. This is real. If you need your name on a flyer or something, it's to give money up, it's wrong. Some of these guys have told me that it saved their life being there. I remember a girl that talked to you one time that had never been away from her pistol until your event. Life-changing things happen.
Yeah, it's she said it was to that event that she'd felt that safe to not have her pistol. Yeah. Said that just being in that camaraderie and in that environment, that she was like, I like myself. I like how I am in this environment, and I want to be around it more. And it's been and real is the main thing. I've truly tried to keep it. This year is going to be our 5th home that we've helped build for disabled veterans. And so if it's not for our sponsors, it's not for our donations, we're not able to do that. This year we'll be able to donate some more money again to Brotherhood for the Fallen, where we're actually able to give money to the families of if their significant other was murdered in the line of duty. And so, yeah, just the amount of things that we're able to do, providing the Western experience for the military first responders and their families. But like you say, the realness of it is the stories that one of the guys came up and told me, he said, man, I love this. This is not corporate. And I didn't understand what he meant when he kept saying that. He's like, well, it's not corporate. Like, it's not a corporate deal. It's not a photo shoot. Like, you're truly giving your time. You're truly trying to help us out. You're truly trying to make this better. And when they know that and they feel it, that's the environment that I want it to be. And it's been amazing the amount of different people that this has been a great outlet for them to kind of give back to that community. It's created a heck of an opportunity to be able to not only just give back to the people that have been disabled, with the home, which is a huge part of where my passion is, but also families. Families sacrifice with this as well. Whether their family didn't, their husband didn't come home, or if he got beat, blowed up, whatever it is that we're trying to help these guys with. But also too is not only that, there's a lot of guys that are amongst civilianhood that are hurting and that are dealing with a lot of stuff that are just keeping it in, and that's the worst thing that can happen. When they try to keep it in, and they're not letting it out, and it's just eating them on day after day after day. And I don't know how many guys have told me once they have gotten into what their passion is, which is roping, and then amongst their own people, it's been amazing. And we have guys there too. They're amongst counseling. We have a group of guys right there that stay amongst that area. And so if there is somebody struggling, it's one of them. It's one of them that's able to help, and they understand exactly what they're going through.
Right.
And so, like I said, it's not only just building the homes, and it's not only just for, some of the families, but also just the group of people, trying to get through basically life, to just be able to have that community where if there is something they're struggling with, we're able to hopefully try to help them get in front of the right people to where they can find happiness and peace and joy again.
Well, this thing that you're doing has gotten popular, and people can look it up on the internet now and look at it. And I've invited vets from my world, airplane, construction, whatever. I see them, and I'm always about those guys. Guys are going up there now that don't even rope.
Mm-hmm.
They're just spectators, but they get to hang out with all their dudes.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of the guys just from being there so much. And, I'll introduce them around a little bit, 1-2 introductions, and they're like, boom, they're gone.
They're off.
They're off.
Yeah.
I mean, the brotherhood is so cool. I really enjoy this thing.
Yeah. And it's pretty cool too when you think about it. If shit goes south during that event, we're the safest damn place we could be once a year.
Yeah. When Snowmageddon came on down here at the house, and we were snowed in for 7 days or whatever it was, and things were kind of rough. Some guys called me from Kansas or Oklahoma, way up there, and they're like, Nelson, we're on the way. We heard you're in a bind. I said, guys, I'm really good. Doesn't matter. We're coming. And I was like, guys, roads are icy. Snowed in. People can't get around. He goes, I got around the rack. I can get to you. And, they're nuts.
Yeah.
And fun.
They're nuts and loyal.
Yes. Very
and
good.
And I love that. It's something, it's something I never really got to experience much. When you're roping out there, I mean, it's up to you to survive.
Yeah.
I mean, you may be team roping, but for the most part, it's up to you to keep your horse sound. It's up to you to stay sharp. It's up for you to try to do the best job you can to provide for your family. Yeah. And so you didn't, it's good to see my buddies again, but this kind of camaraderie and loyalty is something I've never experienced. And it's something a lot of people should, because it's a brotherhood it's almost even as hard to explain.
Yeah, it's tough. Business is a lot the same. You can't tell anybody, or they'll take advantage of what you told them, or cut a deal. You have to be kind of on your own and keep things quiet, or things don't go well. Well, it's polar opposite hanging out with those guys.
Yeah.
Well, I know Charlie. I mean, he's from the 5th Battalion over there. That's what he does. We can call him and tell him everything. I know it's not perfect, but a large percentage of the time, it's a safe deal when they say it's safe.
Absolutely.
That makes me feel good.
Yeah, me too. Well, man, I appreciate the conversation. How can we learn more about your RainSaver Harvesting websites? How do we get a hold of all this information to where the people that are interested in getting this thing put and installed into their place? Yeah,
RainSaver Harvesting TX.com is what my son has set up, and there's videos, and it kind of walks you through the process. And it's not a fancy website, but it gets the deal done. Most importantly, look at that number on there, and if you have questions, call me or my son Colton. And if we don't have the answer, we'll get it for you.
I really think this is a business that I think really, in my opinion, relates to a lot of the Western industry. We use a lot of water to keep our horses watered, our cattle watered, and we have a lot of opportunities to catch a lot of water with our barns, and especially if you have an indoor, facility. And so I really thought this podcast would be really interesting to get amongst a lot of the listeners that, especially in some places, that water is an issue. So
we're not taking care of our resources. We're abusing it, and it's going to bite us soon. So rather than punch a hole in the ground, put a tank on top of it.
And I've heard a lot of very successful business people that are very concerned about that.
Oh,
and so it's really has been an issue down here in Texas, where a lot of people that are very, very educated and understand what's going on. It's a concern amongst that high end group too. So it's definitely something to where they see it coming.
A high percentage of our doomsdayers are smart people, engineers, professors, and in tune with the ecology and what's going on with these people know something's coming, and they're not. I mean, they're writing checks for this stuff. Something's going to happen here soon, I feel, with water. I want to be able to provide it at a reasonable rate before it gets to the rape stage where you got to have it now. You're going to pay,
right?
I mean, we make a good living doing this, and it's fun. And I've been in the drywall business for 30 years, and I've pretty much quit doing that and let that go by the wayside. I enjoy this. I like going to the ranches. I like looking at the jobs. I even sit on a machine.
And a lot of this too is probably part of the culture that you're comfortable with being, like I say, when you're in the ranchers and the farmers community also.
Yeah. This isn't a car that you don't need with GPS on it. This is just basic getting water into a tank and making it safe to use.
Awesome. Man, I appreciate your time, and it was fun to go to that comedy club, and it was fun to watch everyone else make fun of you as well. And so we'll probably have this to where your website might be on the cover of the social media, or we might have it to where when Dollar bucked you off right there, and it was a really cool picture where your feet were over the top of your head.
Yeah,
your head butting his head.
I'm pretty sure which one's going up there.
So when you rope with my wife, like, you guys won a lot. When Jackie was healing, and you guys roped together all the time. You guys would, when I'd take off to rodeos, you two would take off in your rig and go jackpotting. And talk about that time when Dollar smoked you down right there at the jackpot.
Yeah, I'm sitting there laying on my back. My hobble strap broke, and my horse breaks in 5 pieces. I crash to the ground, bend my hat all up, and I look around, and I'm looking for my partner and my best buddy's wife to check on me, and no one's there. So,
she'll break your heart, won't she?
Yes. Flagman brings me my horse back, and we fix a little hobble thing. Start walking out of the arena. I see this big crowd up there around all the TV monitors, and she's having them play it over and over and over and taking pictures of them, sending out on social media. The crash of Tom Nelson. And it's like, man, you are a cold-hearted, brutal woman.
I laughed. She didn't even break stride.
It was funny.
There was pictures that went everywhere. They went viral.
That was a funny moment.
Right on. All right, man. Well, thanks for the conversation. And if you guys are interested in this, check the website out. Thanks for your time, man.
Yeah, that was cool. Thanks.
All right. Bye, everybody.